Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Dr. Dustin J. Byrd. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Ekpyrosis Press here in the US. And I'm happy to have with me today Amjad Hussain, who is the author of this excellent book, Islam and Postmodernism, Iqbal as a Turning Point, recently published by Ekpyrosis Press. And we're going to be talking about that book today and see what's behind it, the contents of it, what brought Amjad to write this book. So thank you for joining me, Amjad. Glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Justin. And thank you very much for bringing this argument to the world, because it was, I really felt it was the need of the hour. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. So just for our viewers here on this YouTube channel, tell me a little bit about yourself. Who is Amjad Hussain?
Well, Amjad Hussain is a lecturer in English at National University of Modern Languages in Pakistan, and I teach at Peshawar campus. I teach English literature, various subjects. I've done my master's from Peshawar University in English literature way back in 1998, and I'm teaching what I believe in. What I believe in is exactly what I'm teaching, because the society that I'm living in is faced with many challenges. So that's where I see myself as a lecturer contributing to. So this is you can call me an activist, kind of who is involved in a struggle with society that which is around me, which is going. It's got nothing to do with like many things are not the way they should have been. So that's Amjad Hussain is trying to make the difference. It's a small effort, but I'm doing it. I'm a lecturer in English, and this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm involved in.
Good. So when I looked at and started to read your book, it became very clear that you're deeply involved in Allama Muhammad Iqbal's thought, that in not necessarily in a traditional way, but in a way that you're connecting his thought to other scholars, other forms of thinking, both within the Muslim world and outside of the Muslim world, the Western scholars, for instance, which isn't always, how should one say, isn't always well received. You know this problem, right? I had the same problem too in one of my previous books.
Yes, it is not. Nobody. There are people who try to stonewall the argument, the whole argument. They don't even want to listen to it.
Right. Yeah, I had that a very similar thing too when I wrote a book on talking about Muslims and modernity from the perspective of the Frankfurt School, and I had scholars saying the Frankfurt School has nothing to say about this and shouldn't say anything.
Exactly. This is what I have to say.
Right. So we have a shared background here and a shared experience.
Yeah, we do.
So
it's very difficult going through that stone wall. It's because they're very well established, reputable professors, and when you say that this is what is wrong in their thought, people look at you and say, "What are you saying? Look at him; he's a full professor, and what are you saying? What is Frankfurt School, and who is Fromm, and what are you talking about? Prof and all those other people." So yeah, they just don't want it, and most of them don't even know about Frankfurt School.
Right, in here in the West, it's the other way around, you know. So it's, you know, if you say anything about Ali Shariati or Iqbal or even traditional Islamic philosophers like Farabi or Ibn Sina, whatnot, who are these people and what do they have to do with anything, you know? Exactly. And that's part of that Eurocentric background. So in this case, in many ways, from the Pakistani perspective, you have it almost from a Pakistani-centric or a subcontinent-centric system.
Yes, and I think I've discussed it at length in my book, that what are the possible reasons for this thing? Why are Muslim scholars doing this thing to the Frankfurt School? which they should have been making an argument for, not an argument against. So I think one of the reasons is that they're conditioned in a certain way. I think I would say it falls it's cultural imperialism, and I think it is cultural imperialism that it's most explicit in Pakistani academia and intellectuals and scholars. That they do not even try to understand the counter argument.
Yeah, when Habermas, soon after 9/11, visited Iran, he was amazed that all these Iranian scholars were reading Michel Foucault, for instance, or they read him, they read Habermas's work, or Axel Honneth, and so there's this idea that people don't step outside of their own civilization or out of their own culture or language or whatnot. When in case many people do, and I think Muhammad Iqbal was one of those people.
He writes in his book that for 500 years, Muslim thought was completely stationary. And he's writing it, that, in other words, that he's the beginning of this break of, he's breaking this cycle, which spanned 500 years. And how does he do it? He goes outside his comfort zone. He goes into, he reads Western philosophy and sees connections, especially in German thought, especially in Nietzsche and Marx, that they tell him that Islam has got something else to tell to the world. It is not something stationary. It is dynamic. It has the potential to lead the world. So Iqbal is coming out of this comfort zone, and nobody else in Pakistan. Pakistan, remember, Dustin, is the dream of Iqbal. Pakistan was dreamt by Iqbal. He wanted a Muslim state, and the state that we are living in is not Islamic at all. It is Islamic in name only. It is controlled. It is colonized. It is totally under the yoke of so Iqbal. Pakistan is the dream of Iqbal, and Iqbal wanted something different, and he could do it because he was able to go out of his comfort zone and bring Western thought, especially German philosophy and science, which was at that time. Like he's talking about Einstein, he's talking about other scientists about time and other theory of relativity. So Iqbal was able, and I'm very happy you talked about Iranian intellectuals talking about Foucault, and that's why Iran is much better than which we think is backward, but I think it is far more advanced in Pakistan, because we have a very bad image of Iran in Pakistan, because it is American influenced country. So America, the way America looks at Iran, we are supposed to look at Iran at the same way. So they have created this perception that they're rigid and they're orthodox and they're extremists in a certain way. And that the point is that Iqbal was one of the true intellectuals, the true philosophers who gave us a new understanding of Islam and what it means. And he could only do it because he was exposed to a Western philosophy. Right now, there is one-dimensional people, intellectuals, and academia is kept in one-dimensional. There are very strictly enforced disciplinary divisions in Pakistan, so they do not allow interdisciplinary studies at all. So we are kept in a very narrow, as a people, as a society. So and that's why Iqbal's dream is falling down, but this is not what Iqbal wanted. That's why I always talk about Iqbal's political philosophy in my book. And that's where postmodernism comes in, because Iqbal wanted the blend of Marx and Nietzsche. And this blend of Marx and Nietzsche we find in Frankfurt School only. And when you come to the Frankfurt School, you come to see a different kind of critical social theory. And I think this is what they are teaching Iqbal to us. They are telling us that this is how Iqbal read Nietzsche, this is how he understood Nietzsche, this is how he understood read Marx, this is how. So it's that political philosophy, what I'm trying to bring in to the present time. And I'm part of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. It's a political party. And they say that Iqbal is their ideologue. So I'm trying to infuse this ideology of Iqbal, a new in a postmodern Iqbal in sync with critical social theory, liberation theology kind of thing. And I'm trying to make use of him to make a change in the society that we're living in, because we have lost our sense of direction. Pakistan, just give you an example. Pakistan, my party, which was in power and which has been in power in KP for the last almost 9 years, they are making the state of Medina with the tools of capitalism and neoliberalism. So, and nobody is able to understand. We see that this is something which is impossible. That as if it is an oxymoron kind of thing, that you're making a state of Medina which was built on justice with the tools of capitalism, which is based in exploitation and domination, and which is injustice, neoliberalism, which is nothing but as Foucault would say, it's a technology of control and a technology of domination. So I'm trying to use Iqbal and Frankfurt School and harmony simultaneously, so that people can, if they are able to understand Frankfurt School's direction, if they're able to understand that critical social theory's direction, they'll be able to understand Iqbal's direction for Islam as well, for Muslim political thought as well, and we will be able to bring a kind of a change where Islam is leading the world, not following it, in terms of what is possible in human society, with this kind of society that we could have. So Iqbal wanted, when he dreamt about Pakistan, a Muslim state, he wanted a society which is a model, role model for the whole world, to look at that this is Islam. If this is Islam, oh, wonderful, then we accept Islam. Not that you are imposing yourself, you become a role model for the people. For that, he wanted to create an individual which is just like Nietzsche's Superman, Ubermensch, but he is an individual who is devoid of the problematics of Nietzsche. He understands himself because he understood his God. Okay, and now he is weighted God. So that kind of individual will make that kind of society possible. So Iqbal's is a very comprehensive thought Iqbal is bringing to, and I think it is possible that we are the current the previous Prime Minister Imran Khan, who was removed through when he refused to I think denounce the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and he visited Ukraine when people thought that he shouldn't have. So he is, I think, able to do these things that Iqbal, because he is his team is very incompetent, but he is very sincere. So if he comes to know this kind of Iqbal, I think he will be able to see what's possible.
And
This is
go ahead. Here, I'll let you comment on this. It always strikes me that these type of scholars that are deeply entrenched, they're rooted in the Islamic tradition, but they're open to the other world, that in so many ways that is the primordial Islamic attitude towards the world outside of the Muslim world. I mean, you think of the early generations of Muslims when they conquered this territory, from Andalusia all the way to Central Asia into the Indus Valley, they all of a sudden had to govern an empire that huge, and they couldn't just learn it from scratch. Most of these people within a generation ago were living simply in the desert, right? Some small little towns and cities in the desert. So how did they learn to manage an empire? Well, they learned it from Greek knowledge, from Roman knowledge, from Babylonian, from Persian, from Indian. I mean, Indian mathematics, became the basis of
They
math.
employed them. They employed them. Like
Yeah,
Jewish scholars were employed by Muslim kings and governors. So they learned from them. They were open to new ideas. Upon Safa, the school of philosophers that we talk about in early Muslim intellectuals, upon Safa, brethren of purity. What did they talk about? They were philosophers, they were mathematicians, they were exegetes, and they were so many other things. So and right now, the kind of Islam that the Muslims, the kind of Islam that, for example, in Pakistan, Pakistan, they've got nothing to do with a new thought. They're completely devoid of it. They don't even appreciate it. They think as if they are safeguarding Islam, as if they are the guardians of Islam. They cannot do it with they simply don't understand that this is not the way things are. But this is Quran is something. The argument in the Quran is something entirely different. So the kind of the man that they have created is a monster, a monstrosity in that human being. So Muslim scholars, like, and they historically they were interacting with all these other sources of knowledge scattered all over the world. Babylonians, as you mentioned, and Greeks, and also many others.
Yeah, exactly. It always reminds me that, from what I was always taught about Islam was that, haq is haq, truth is truth, regardless of where it comes from, regardless of its source.
Exactly.
Haq is haq,
Exactly.
And then, today you have almost like a siege mentality in much of the Muslim world, and even in Muslim academia, that because Islam or Muslims are under siege, we have to close in on ourselves and simply protect what we have and not let that in. Because if we let it in, it's immediately bid'ah, you know what I mean? It's innovation immediately, right?
True.
As opposed to seeing truth for truth, interrogating these claims from the Islamic perspective.
Exactly. And this is exactly what Iqbal was suggesting when he said that this is your inheritance. Your forefathers passed it on before they went into a deep slumber. So like Muslim Spain taught these things. They preserved, they learned it from Greeks, and then they passed it on to the West. And now he's, in other words, is telling us to go and grab and understand these, because they are your own inheritance. He calls it our inheritance. And now, and what we have done, we have closed our minds to it. If whatever we listen to is just coming from one source, that is America and American pragmatism, imperialistic, those things. That is the model which is shaping everything in Pakistan, neoliberalism and capitalism. And we have stopped learning from anything from Germany or any other place, because that they are not the standard, they are the standard.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if the US is at the forefront of history right now, they become the standard for the rest of the world. Yeah, and in many ways, it's the most regressive part of the American society too. I mean, there's a deep tradition of justice seeking, truth seeking in the United States, right? But that doesn't come through so much on the international level. What comes through is the militarization, the hypocrisy of democracy. Like, we call for democracy, but really we'd rather have a dictator because they're easier to work with, this type of stuff. So, yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. And that would impinge on how people see someone like Allama Iqbal, because he would inherently be a critic of that type of thinking.
Exactly, and that's what like he wanted something. When we talk about the Frankfurt School, the existential thing, the current thing, the human thing. This is what he wanted us to focus on. And remember, do you know that he was very severe critic of Plato? Why? Because he said that he tells you to abandon the world. He says, no, you cannot abandon the world. You got to fight for stay in it, and you got to fight it. And that's what Iqbal is teaching, and the kind of situation that we are in. We need people, not people who are running away from the struggle, but who are joining the struggle, because it's a struggle for what is right, what is just, what is human. It is our responsibility. So this is what Iqbal is teaching in such a situation, that you got to know that if you are unable to help someone in need, your God, your other approaches to God will not yield any results, because God will judge you how you treated your own human beings. And this is Iqbal is what teaching, and this is what he is telling us, that this is what you need to be doing. The situation is to fight for justice and stand up for it. No running away from it. It does not suggest that. So Iqbal is very crucial in this struggle for meaning in life, direction, purpose in life. Because Iqbal is working from that Socratic thing, that know thyself. In other words, and his, the thing is that those who understand, only those who can know their God can know themselves. This is the situation. And how do you know God? By helping others. And how do you know yourself? By helping others. Because if you, that is the way to God. That the scripture, because scripture teaches you to behave, like act. Sentence of the opening sentence of this book is that the Quran is a book which emphasizes deed rather than idea. And so it is the deed that he is focusing on, and it is deed what we are missing in the entire Muslim world. We are in a deep slumber. We are at many places, because of our inaction, we are suffering some of the worst atrocities that are imaginable. So it is the Iqbal is throughout emphasizing agency, what postmodernism calls agency. It is also deed, amal, go, way, work. Don't run away. Don't be a hermit. Don't run away, because if you want to understand your God, if you want to understand yourself, you got to stay in the struggle. You got to stay in the fight. You got to do whatever you can to stop this onslaught, this further, which is taking everything away. And the other thing is that he said, this is not the meaning of life. Meaning of life for a Muslim is entirely different. So Iqbal is extremely important in the struggle against injustice, the struggle against the idols, the so many idols, especially what he called money, and which is created the consumer society, which is creating desire, which is driving people away from religion and to trying to find comfort in something which takes them into a spiral that they are unable to come back from, and that's why they lose this world and the other world as well. So Iqbal is extremely important.
Yeah, and that has a lot of overlap with, for instance, Erich Fromm's work. It immediately conjures up the idea, Fromm's book, having to have or to be.
Exactly.
Right? Right. So
exactly.
Two modes of modern existence, to have is the accumulation of stuff, to find value in your own life and what you own. Of course, it's necrophilic because none of this stuff is alive. It's all just dead stuff. You know what I mean? And then the other side is this existential richness of being in the world, being for oneself, yes, but also being for the others, finding oneself in the face of the others, in the charity, in the help, you know what I mean? And you're right. I think, that's one of the things that, here in the West, we struggle with it because we're socialized into thinking that success in this world is to have a McMansion in some vanilla suburb with, 2 three, really nice cars, German, Italian cars or something, that we make six figures or more, da 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 da, the whole thing, and then people find themselves existentially hollow, meaningless, I have all these things, but I have no meaning. Right. And whereas both Fromm and Iqbal, and even primordially in the early Islamic tradition, it wasn't about the accumulation of things, but it was about connections with people. Right. And so the question for the
Exactly. It
West,
was never.
right, right. I mean, how do you be with and for yourself and others in some kind of balance, and I think that's one of the things that the Frankfurt School, at least with Habermas, brings up, is that in many ways the Western tradition has become exhausted. It doesn't have resources to somehow nurture that kind of solidarity with people, and that's one of the reasons why he says we in the West ought to remain open to religion, even if the religious articulation from, let's say, Aqidah, from creed or something like that, from the Islamic creed, can't be somehow just artificially imported in the West, but at least they should be open to it, to be able to translate those things into secular language or even into religious language, and so that,
Exactly. And yeah, yeah. Please.
so in that sense, the West still has a lot to learn from the rest of the world, especially the parts of the world that can still maintain genuine religious devotion.
True. So, and you mentioned Erich Fromm.
Mhm.
In his book Sane Society, he discusses his idea of humanistic psychoanalysis, where he corrects pride, that it is not just sexual audible complex which drives man. It is separation from nature. And in that book, he quotes a few lines from Rumi.
Mhm.
If you remember the Sane Society, he quotes a few lines from Rumi, and the very exact the thing is that he when you open Mullah Jalaluddin Rumi's Masnavi, the first few lines, okay, that's where this idea comes into Fromm's mind, that it is through which he corrects pride, okay, that it is not audible complex, it's separation from nature, which is
Mm.
what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
So he's using Muslim or religious thought to heal Western problems.
Yeah, yeah. Bishnas inechunikoyat mikarat. Listen to the story told by the reed.
Exactly, and the read says that I'm full of pathos and full of pain, and because I'm cut off from nature, and I want to go back to that nesta, nesata. Yeah?
Right.
Exactly. So it is, man is trying to go back to that primordial oneness. That is, this is what is driving the man. So
Right, right. No,
so
exactly.
from like Frankfurt School, they've gone back to religion in order to heal the Western problems, and especially the problems of modern man.
Yeah, I think with the domination of instrumental reason, that it went from being the Western man as the man of machines, efficiency, technology, to do these things. We had a problem, we found a way that we could fix that problem with the machine, and so we developed that kind of reason here, but it was meant to stay within the realm of the machines, within the realm of tools, but it be also, it almost like a pandemic, it kind of merged into other parts of the sphere of life, so now it's instrumental reason in how we relate to each other, how we relate to people, in a restaurant, or and so now it's lost its humanity, if you will.
We used to keep friends and possessed things. Now we possess, we keep things and possess, or keep relationship with the friends and other human beings as if they are objects. Right. The other things, the other objects are as if they are part of our life. And that we could be nothing without them. Man has changed in this direction that he has taken. That's where Frankfurt School is really instrumental. It's very critical that people start listening to Frankfurt School, because Frankfurt School is trying to heal this thing in man. the direction that man has taken is he has been a tremendous pain in the whole world. This is man who, in pursuit of interest, in pursuit of materials, he has devastated.
Yeah,
And combined with Iqbal, I think they will make a wonderful argument. They might change things.
Yeah, well, you know, and that's one of the things that I think is so important because, you know, I've done a lot of work in Ali Shariati in Iran, and you know, he was deeply rooted in the Shia tradition, and he goes to France to study. Now, he'd already been introduced to some, you know, they call them Western ideas, but socialism is not necessarily a Western idea, but he was already introduced to some of that type of thinking, and he goes to France and he studies with these scholars, and they don't somehow export Western ideas into the Islamic tradition. What he does is he starts to see that they're already in the Islamic tradition. You know, when Islam is at its best, say, you know, for instance, Bedi Uzman and Syed Nursi would say that, you know, when the Muslim world is at its best, when it's at its most religious, it's at its most progressiveness. It runs well, it functions well. And when it's you know, its tank of faith is at its lowest, that's when it's, you know, not functioning right. And that might be just the opposite for other societies, but for at least for the Islamic society, it's that way. And so I think Ali Shariati was one of those guys that, from just being exposed for this other world of ideas, could therefore find it already in the Islamic tradition. He could bring it back up to the forefront, the sense of justice, you know, and like you're talking about, you know, Iran went through this capitalist phase, you know, American capitalism in the 1970s, especially 60s and 70s. And, you know, and then he realized that the Islamic tradition cannot be reconciled with this system of exploitation of which capitalism is. Right. But if you say that that comes from Marx, a lot of Muslim scholars are like, oh my God, it's Marx. You know what I mean? He's an atheist. He's, you know, that's bid'ah, or he's a shaitan, you know what I mean? All this stuff. Right. As opposed to
this is exactly what happened to Iqbal when he discussed that communism, or ishtirakiyat as we call it in Urdu, that it is part of, he used a Quranic term for it, that it means that whatever is surplus, distribute. It's a Quranic term, he said, and this is what, so he received quite a lot of flack for it, because what are you doing? Marx is equal to atheism, like communism or is equal to atheism. This is which America was teaching and everything. So yes, they would find the Quran, these things, that these ideas that they would come across in the Western world, they would find that yes, there are roots in Muslim tradition as well, and they would try to revive and use them in sync to make a change and try to make a difference.
Right. Even, you know, even if you take Marx's critique of religion, of, you know, that it's the opiate of the masses, you can apply that to Jahiliyyah, right? And say, okay, you know, clearly, you know, this paganism of the pre-Islamic Arabs was in a way somehow justifying the status quo as it was. You know, it gave it divine legitimation.
Exactly.
And what did Islam do? Islam wasn't opium. Islam was Viagra. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hang on a second.
True.
This is all wrong.
True.
This is all wrong. This is not
exactly.
You know,
True.
and so
exactly.
So already that critique
yeah, and that's where that Iqbal's emphasis on deed comes in, and if it is because you need to come out of that thing, because you cannot stay a spectator forever, and you see your society being taken apart. So religion is not an opposite. Religion is a very like essential driving force among people. Like it's one of the Iqbal calls it a vital fact in a human's life. So if it is made, religion wakes up to its challenge. It understands itself. It will not no longer remain an opiate. It will change societies. It will be the driving force. But the religion of that sort is not talking. That's why it has become an opiate right now, and it has coming under this deep state of indecisiveness. And I don't know, it could be a colonized mentality or colonial baggage or something that what Freire called pedagogy of the oppressed kind of thing has happened to it. And we have turned religion into something which is lifeless, and this religion, that's where Marx becomes even more relevant. But religion is extremely important in especially political theology, as we know, and you've been discussing them, political theology as well. So religion can change society right now, but religion, the way it is taught in Pakistani society or elsewhere, it is not religion, it is something else. It's because religion is, Iqbal calls it an intellectual test. But you got to understand, accept religion as a vital fact, only then will it move you to action. Right now, we are becoming Muslims and other faiths by chance. I'm a Muslim because I was born in a Muslim family. Somebody else Jew because he was born in a Jew. They never, only the very few come out of this thing, and it is these people that the Quran addresses. It makes them understand its argument, that what is important, what needs to be done, why truth is important, why justice is important, why helping other people is religion, and this is what we learn from Marx, because otherwise it's an opium of the people.
Right. And I think one of the things that, people who read Marx in such a way that they read him dogmatically is they forget already what he says before the opium of the people, that a society, the oppressed, you know what I mean? That religion comes out of suffering, human suffering, and it's a protest against that human suffering, right? And so he already has within that small, relatively small, phrase about religion, the dialectics of religion. That religion, it's oftentimes, portrayed in the modern world as religion against anti-religion. But I think Ali Shariati said it once when he said, no, it's religion versus religion. It's the religion of domination, the religion of oppression versus the religion of emancipation, religion,
Exactly.
And so it's divided in itself, right?
And that's what makes Marx a Sufi, and that's what Iqbal calls him. He calls him a prophet without a book. This is what he talks when he mentioned. So he knows the importance of Marx's argument and he knows that it is what he's driving at. That he's not talking about religion. His religion is not his concern. He is concerned with the exploitation of the people. He wants us to stop that. He wants us to contribute to that thing. He wants us to change things, not sit idle, not take, not be taken into a deep slumber. We got to wake up, and that's here Iqbal understands that Marx, and he sees Sufi dimensions in this argument for humanity, this argument for humanism, this argument for man. That it is man who is concerned with it is man who is non-negotiable for like you cannot exploit him, you cannot oppress him, you are no different. Like he does not believe in these classes. So Iqbal understands him very well, that this is what Sufi would do, this is what a Sufi would think, and he's, in other words, could be telling us about this, so to understand the Sufi in action. It's also because the way he likes his argument, the way he appreciates it, and the way he sees it as a continuation of whatever was unable, what Muslim society was unable to produce at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
can we bring into a different direction here? How is Iqbal? How is he approached today in Pakistan? Are people reading him? Is he taught in schools?
Yes, he's read a lot, but the point is that how is he read? because they are reading him, but they are reading him from a completely flawed understanding. Because there is, remember one thing I told you earlier, that the Pakistani society is kept in, Pakistani academia is kept in strict disciplinary background, so there is no interdisciplinary interaction. Everything is in a strict disciplinary background. A student who has done a master's, for instance, in English literature cannot go and get enrolled in political science department for a higher degree, because it's that strict. I went so. If people are reading Iqbal, but they are reading him from a perspective which HEC is promoting, and HEC is getting completely, it is stonewalling German thought. Like there is no everything is coming from that analytic philosophy perspective, that rationalist, positivist perspective. So they are reading Iqbal, but they are making making him compatible with American pragmatism, as I discussed right now. So they are he's read in a completely flawed. There is no Marx. If there is Marx, he's kept away from Iqbal. There must be a distance between the two. LUMS is specifically, LUMS is a very prestigious university in Pakistan, started with seed money from America. Okay, and there are two professors. One is Dr. Basit Bilal. He's completely he's Iqbalist, and the other one is Dr. Taimur Rahman, and he's a Marxist. Okay, and they are keeping Iqbal and Marx separate. Okay, intentionally. So this is how Pakistani society, there other people who are reading Iqbal from completely flawed perspective, and you need to have, they need to have so critical social theory, Frankfurt School opening to understand Iqbal. They need to understand the argument in postmodernism and postcolonialism and post-structuralism, Derrida, Michel Foucault, Iqbal, Edward Said, Iqbal Ahmed, Homiba. All of them, you need all of them to understand Iqbal's argument. And all of them are stonewall. All of them are kept up. Like it's as if they don't exist. As if they don't exist. Even if they are, then there is strict disciplinary boundaries for them. They cannot see it. And this is how a society is getting prepared for complete control and complete domination. And you can sell them anything, and it will they will not be able to, because again, education system in Pakistan is based in rote memorization. A teacher tells you to memorize from page 1 to page 5 for question number 1, and question number 2 memorize from page 5, 6 to 7, and you memorize, the whole society memorizes it, and then write, and then they get, so they are unable, they are not given critical thought. They're unable to, more than 80-90% of students are able to use their minds critically. So then we send them out into society, and then they're controlled, and then they are led as if they are blind, as if they are dumb, as if they are automaton. So
yeah. So they become good. They learn.
Yeah, so that they can.
Down, you know.
So this is how Iqbal is read. So that because if Iqbal is read the way he should be read, the way I'm trying to present, that he should be read in consonance with whatever the argument in Frankfurt School and all those political liberation theology and all those other people. So if Iqbal is read that way, then we'll be able to come out of that shackle, but it is not available. They are not available, all these, and it is very difficult for Iqbal to be understood properly right now, because the people who are Iqbalists, they're controlling the discourse about Iqbal. They are the last word, they are the authority. And I told you, like, they are reading him from a completely flawed perspective. That perspective is no longer valid, because we are in a different world right now. We're in a completely different argument right now. Postmodernism, Frankfurt School, critical social theory, all those things that you are doing, and the Ekpyrosis Press is promoting. They are completely unaware of these things, and they are so necessary, so important for Iqbal, because without them, you cannot make sense of Iqbal. And Iqbal is. Iqbal is very important for us as a political philosopher, because he's the only person who is relevant right now in the political field, because Pakistan society is thoroughly political right now, and we are undergoing through protests right now. And Iqbal is the ideologue, but all we need to do is correct the understanding of Iqbal, teach what Iqbal is all about and how he should be read, and what he's done, and only then we will get political power, but it will take a lot of time to understand Iqbal and then change things accordingly.
Yeah, I'm always
right now.
I was saying, I'm always intrigued by how societies are able to appropriate and neutralize at the same time these type of revolutionary forces. I mean, the same thing, is here and with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Cornel West, the philosopher, always says that we Santa Claused Dr. King, meaning we turned him into the quote unquote good Negro, and so we only remember
exactly.
I have a dream speech, which is, it's beautiful, it's lofty, you know what I mean? But it's not the same kind of Dr. King who was in the pulpit on Sunday saying, not God bless America, God damn America. You know what I mean? That's not the King we remember. It sounds
and it is not, and remember, and it's very pertinent to mention that the chairman of our party is considered very, his rhetoric is very anti-American, but people are trying to construe it as anti-American people. It is never anti-American people he loves, and we love American people like you and Chomsky and so many others. We love. It is the policies of the government, and especially the policies in our country and the rest of the third world countries, where they are playing against what they say that they're playing for. The human rights and other democracy, they never promoted these things. They always promoted tyrants, and they always promoted autocracies and authoritarian and populist governments. So just this thing that nobody is against America or American people. We love American people, and most of us, most of the people of the party are living in Mappa. I think they're living. Most of them are living in America, because that's where most of our social team is located, in America. And then so it is that people are just trying to create this wedge and then try to assassinate our chairman Imran Khan. But it is not that thing. He doesn't have this bone, this negative bone in him. He's an open and honest person, and he's a true Iqbalist, but his Iqbal is a bit rusty and and too old-fashioned, and he needs to upgrade and update his Iqbal to be able to see what is possible and see he's capable of, because the kind of people, the kind of ideas that Iqbal is going to bring with him, they're going to revolutionize political struggle all over the world, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, that's, I think, Americans, when they're living within America, they never leave. They, it produces this kind of image of the benevolent society, that everything that's right in human civilization is here and we embody it. And we're like, oh yeah, we got some issues, but by and large, everything is great. I think once you leave the country and you can look back at it, what you can see is that America from its very inception has had a divided spirit. You know what I mean? That we talk about that. Fichte always talks about the Geist of the German people, blah, 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 blah. Usually the fascists are the ones talking about that. But if we say that America has a spirit, it's always been a divided spirit. One side of it is about liberation, freedom, democracy, empowering the people. And the other side was slavery and genocide, and even right up to a modern
exactly.
Politics. Even our modern politics is that way. It's divided. Exactly. You have, religious people who are, open and tolerant, and people who want to, stand for freedom and independence of people to be who they are. And then you have religious people on the other side that said no to that. We have to have, like an iron cage of Christianity. It's got to be exactly the way we say it is. And you have the exact same thing on secular side, secular conservatives, the Republican Party, or Democratic, secular folks on the Democratic side. And so I think, when people look at America, they can, if they look at it dialectically, and this is one of the important things to think through Hegel and Marx and the Frankfurt School, when you look at it dialectically, you see that the US in many ways is much like all these other societies, divided, split, you know,
You are.
and it's not monolithic by any stretch of the imagination. So, you know,
It is not. It is not.
and unfortunately, that's the kind of view I think that a lot of Americans have of, let's say, Pakistan or Iran. I mean, Iran's always the worst. It's just constantly demonized here.
Exactly.
You know, I had a friend of mine who got really mad because I said something about Iran, and he said, "Look, you know, why do you stand up for a country that wants to kill us all?" And it's like,
Exactly. Exactly.
why do you think Iranians want to kill all
The-
Americans? Like,
Exactly.
who told you that?
True.
Um,
True. True.
But that's
True.
the kind of
And
that's the kind of
I
analysis
think
that
that
you get when you study people like Muhammad Iqbal, who can see the nuance, who can see things dialectically, you can see things on the both sides, and do a determinate negation, as the Germans would say, Aufheben. You know, the parts that are right, that are true, that are helpful, those get preserved,
exactly. You
and
you
the
take them.
ideology is pushed away. Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And like it is so important to understand Iqbal at this moment, because there is no other alternative. There is no other viewpoint available in Pakistani right now, and especially the we can to which we can open up this thing, so that this extreme stagnation, suffocation. Without Iqbal, we cannot do it, and it's so important that Iqbal is given this opportunity. But it will take a lot of struggle, I think, because I've tried, and since I'm trying since very long to meet the prime minister. I've met different people just to make him realize that how important is your Iqbal for the future and for the current times. But it is the circle of people around him. They're mostly capitalists, they're mostly industrialists, and they are mostly people that can they do not allow you to reach Imran Khan or talk to him about anything. So I hope through these kinds of interactions, we are able to make him realize that what is possible in the name of Iqbal, and what is it that Iqbal makes available to the world right now, because Dustin, I cannot tell you the situation that we are living in Pakistan. People, mashallah, God has given me a job. I'm a lecturer, but I see poverty all around me. Okay, and my own family members, extended family members, all of them are suffering because they. It is possible to feed them all. It is possible to clothe them all. It is possible to give them every facility, but they are denied all these things, and it is because we don't consider them human beings. It is because we are cut off. We're not that. I tell as I'm told you earlier that I'm telling my students to remain human beings. Remember that you are human beings. It is that difficult in Pakistan, and that's why Iqbal is very important, because he is making us into human beings. He has the capacity, the capability, the potential to make us into human beings, because he brings Quran with him, Quranic argument with him, and he makes us into it is possible that if we understand Iqbal, we'll transform ourselves into good human beings. So this is what I'm right now doing.
But it sounds very similar to something that I talk a lot about, and it's one of the three pillars of the press, to know yourself, and how important it is to go back to your own roots, right? To draw from your own resources. Some time ago, someone told me about, if America would become Buddhist, it would save America. And it's like, Buddhism is not going to save America. Look, I'm sorry, with all due respect to my dear brothers who are Buddhists and brothers and sisters who are Buddhists, Buddhism isn't going to save America. But if America goes back to its own roots, let's even starting from Socrates, to the Greeks and the Romans and the Germanic traditions, and, return to those resources. Don't just simply throw them out because Aristotle said some people are fit for slavery. Oh, okay, now I can't read Aristotle anymore. No. Again, determinate negation. What does he say? Where is it true? How can it reinvigorate a society? How can it firm up the foundations, the shaky foundations of our society? So it's the same with Pakistan. You have to return back to Iqbal. That doesn't mean shut down to other people, to other civilizations, other scholars, intellectuals, whatnot.
It does not. It does not.
Right. Remain open. Return to that foundation.
I think the way is that you got to come to Iqbal through that other window, through the other door, through the Western civilization or knowledge, because you cannot reach Iqbal. As I told you, the way things stand, Iqbal is very difficult to be understood. You got to open the floodgates of a Frankfurt School, and the argument you got to one day you cannot they cannot do without him. So they will open up to that argument, and that argument will change the whole thing. They cannot remain cut off from the thoughts that are all around them. They cannot do it without them. And right now they're trying their level best, but I don't think it is possible. It is evolutionary impossible anyway. Until one day there will be these things will change. These floodgates will open, and then Iqbal will be understood. Okay, and if they cannot guard these doors anymore because they are weak, and they are because corruption has weakened them. More in every sense of the word. So they will give way, inshallah, and they will come when something new will come to the world, a new argument, a new model, a new role model will be available to the world, inshallah.
Right.
And Iqbal is going to be the key, because only when the doors are open to the Western thought, Iqbal will be understood, and I hope it will change things.
Right. Yeah, because just memorizing isn't going to work. Yeah, that type of education and memorization is not going to work.
No, but the things, the struggle is going on in it. I'm allowing my students. My classroom is a virtual battleground. Okay, I engage them in controversial things. So I open them up. Like, for example, evolution is one of my favorite topics because it's a red herring in front of Muslim kids, in it. The return of Jesus Christ, because I'd say that Iqbal denies it. Okay, so because I want to engage them in an argument, and once I want to start the engine which is lying dormant in their mind. And so there are students who are going into research. Okay, they're inshallah, there are doors. I'm opening them up to these arguments that we're discussing. Frankfurt School, I give them Fromm to read, Bloch to read, Marcuse to read, and your books, and all, so many other. So I'm opening them up to slowly and gradually to this thing, and they are responding, mashallah. So it is not just a day will come, inshallah. This will sprout. This will become into a powerful tree, inshallah. Food bearing tree, inshallah.
Right.
The struggle is on. That's why I said evolutionary will win.
Yeah, no, and it's important, I think, not only to introduce students to our own resources, but the other writers from other civilizations, simply because you have to mold their minds in between the retreat into fundamentalism or the retreat into pathological xenophilia. You know what I mean? What did Ali Ahmed called it? Gharb Zadegi in Farsi, right? This West toxification,
exactly,
which is a form of xenophilia. It's the everything that those people do is is awesome, it's the best. Everything we do is horrible, right? I mean, that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is fundamentalism, is to retreat into the resources and closing oneself off, and to produce those, to help construct and mold and nurture those minds for the 21st century. They have to be able to do it in between these two things, right? So it's a tough
It
job.
is very interesting, but it's very interesting. I enjoy my students' reactions because it is always amazement, and it's always fun to, because they've never been allowed. Nobody allows them. In Pakistani classroom, you cannot even ask a question. The lecturer comes, he dictates things, you write them down. As Paulo Freire called banking school of education in pedagogy of the best, and he would ask for the answers. You got to reproduce them from memory exactly with a small comma and full stop and everything supplied, and then you progress. So when I change, when I know, because this is my job in it. This is I love teaching. I left a career in Saudi Arabia, very lucrative, just to teach my own people, because Iqbal was here and there was no money in Pakistan, but there was Iqbal here. So I had to leave a very lucrative career in Saudi Arabia to come back when I was able to make those connections. So I'm trying my level best to create those people who will become. I want them who will become officers or politicians or artists or writers or whatever. But they would teach other people. Like as activism. I'm a different kind of students I'm producing. Those who are not only students but are activists. They're thinking and they're engaged with the society. They're not just sleepwalking through it, the world. I'm telling them what is important. And Iqbal, Frankfurt School are the key to it.
Yeah. The automatons, as Fromm calls them. That modern education somehow produces whole civilizations of automatons.
Exactly.
They know how to do what they're designed to do and told to do, but how to think outside of it is absolutely foreign to them.
Exactly. And in Pakistan, it's a sin. If you think outside the box, if you ask a question about anything religious from a scholar, it's a sin. You don't use your reason. You don't use your reason in religion. You got to blindly follow. Why? Because they're sending them myths and stories. They've got nothing. I hope, thank God that you don't understand Urdu, because if had you listened to their stories, you would have said that if this is Islam, I'm not. I've got nothing to do with it. The kind of questioning, reasoning is not allowed at all. It is a sin. So it is. You are not even programmed to it, but it's even if you're programmed, it becomes a sin.
Right.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm doing my best.
Yeah, to nurture the akal, nurture the reasoning, right? Exactly, the intellect.
Iqbal calls it khirad, and Iqbal is like, I always say it's intellectual test. You are Muslims because I like provoke them that you're not Muslims because Islam is not hereditary. You got to accept it or with your own reason, your own akal, and then that's where things. One of the tricks that I've learned in my teaching career. So to provoke them, so they. Akal khirad is calls it khirad. Yeah.
No, it's important. I'd never, understood Islam as being the tradition that demands sacrificium intellectus, right? As they say in Latin, the sacrifice of the intellect, right? I mean, what does the Quran constantly say? It says ponder, think, over and over again.
Afala yatadabbarun al-Quran. Don't you ponder what is written in the Quran? Everywhere, and like a theory of evolution. I say that it is not that Pakistan is Quran is using it as a proof of its truth contents. That I am a truth because I'm what you're coming to it understanding now. I had it earlier. So Quran is that kind of thing. Akal is very important. Akal it is very important, but do you know how Muslim students are taught in Pakistan Quran? Like they don't understand Arabic and they memorize Arabic,
Right.
okay, without understanding anything. Like what is written in the Quran, they don't know. They just memorize it
Right.
without, like as if like you got to understand the meaning of the Quran to be able to understand what is the why you're Muslim. And most of my society is Muslim, and they don't understand what is written in the Quran, what does it mean. They've memorized in Arabic and they don't know the meaning of it.
Yeah, I've met numerous Hafizi Quran from Pakistan who don't know what it said, but they have the entire thing memorized, but have no idea what it's actually saying. And you know, on the one hand, you know, may Allah give you blessings for memorizing the entire Quran. Alhamdulillah. Right?
Exactly.
But
Alhamdulillah.
what does it mean?
That's the actual thing in it. During Ramadan, it is a tradition in Pakistan that they employ young Qari of Quran, and they recite Quran in Taraweeh. And the speed that they recite Quran is mind-boggling. 120 miles, I always call them. They recite Quran at 120 miles an hour. And people are sitting at the back. Some of them are standing, and the other people are sitting and they're enjoying their tea and kava, and then they're listening, talking, and the Qari is reciting Quran at that speed. Okay, and they say that we have done Khatme Quran, and Allah will bless us for it, without understanding what it means.
Right. Right.
And I tell my students that you got to, if you understand one verse of the entire month of Ramadan, that's enough for you.
Right.
At least understand it.
Yeah.
So that's why ignorance is growing in it. That's why they are able to be controlled. That's why their people are able to control their minds. Whatever they tell them is in the Quran, they accept it. It is in the Quran.
Right. Right.
There are wonderful anecdotes about these things. Do you want me to tell you one?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Because on a very lighter note, do you know axe? Okay, a boy came to a Molvi and borrowed an axe from him. Okay, he went home. Something happened to him, and he lost that axe. So he came to the Molvi, to the Alim, to the Imam, and he asked him that a question. That man asked him, what happens to the man who, if you give him something and he loses it? So the Imam says that if you did it intentionally, you are punished for it, or it's a sin. You got to compensate. But if you did it unintentionally, there is no punishment. God will. So he said that, I lost your axe, the axe that you had given me. So the Molvi says that, you're talking about the axe. Oh, sorry, something is written about the axe in the Quran. And he opened the Quran and said that here it is written because that that for every axe you got to give compensation. And since he didn't know it is in the Quran, he gave compensation.
Right.
So that is the kind of thing that people are just. They've memorized everything in Arabic and they say that we are Muslims. And this is the majority of Pakistan we're talking about. More than 80% of Pakistan we're talking about.
Yeah, one of the things that I always found interesting, you know, with this overlap between the Quran in the Frankfurt School is the critique of ideology, and the critique even more specifically of idolatry. You know, and it's very clear, you know, in the Quran that, you know, if you take it into the age of Jahiliyyah, that he's talking about the false gods and whatnot. But if you bring that into modernity, what are the false gods? You know, the false
desires,
exactly, and of wealth, and, you know, and earthly success, you know what I mean, and all the rest of that stuff. the idolatry of the market, as they would say. And it's deeply critical of both, the Frankfurt School and the Quran, and from where the Frankfurt School gets it from, which is the Torah, right? The second commandment, which is the Bilderverbot, or the image ban, right? The ban on image and image making, and that
Exactly.
goes into the political theory and political thinking and political theology of the Frankfurt School.
Thou shalt not make graven images. Huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You find
Thou shalt not make graven, yes. And exactly. And Quran calls it desires to be one of the shirks, associating some. So shirk is one of the most heinous crimes in Islam. And if you associate anyone with God, that is the ultimate that you can do. And desire is one of the shirk.
Mm-hmm.
And the modern man, the society that we're consumer society that we are living in, the capitalist modernist society that we're living in, is making only desires and invading us from every platform, from every angle, and creating desires in us. You got to buy this phone, you got to buy that thing, you got to buy this thing, you got to own this car, you got to all those other things, you got to eat this burger, you got to wear this jeans, and all those other things. You got to buy this washing machine or all those other things, the things that you don't want. So desires, and Quran calls it one of the shirk, right? One of the most heinous crimes.
Yep. And we have the issue in politics of what I call ethno-apotheosis, apotheosis, or to turn something into a god, deification. And now, in response to multiculturalism, you have the far right engaging in this deification of race and ethnos and whatnot, that somehow it becomes the ultimate standard, the absolute, or the great leader becomes someone that shall not be questioned. It becomes a new idol, and
idol. Yes, exactly.
And you see that in the way, like with our last president, people idol worshipped him. And then when Joe Biden became the president, they said, oh, look, why don't you, drive around with flags, Joe Biden flags? And because people are like, we elected him to do a job. He's not a god. You know what I mean? It's like,
exactly.
The functionary of the state. That's what we're worried about, But yeah, that type of creation or deifying that which is made by God from the Quranic perspective, deifying that and turning that into a rival with God is shirk. And you can translate that right into the secular Western world. Right, from the depth of the mythos and the depth of the Quranic, Jewish, and even Christian tradition, right into the modern period in secular philosophy.
Exactly. And this is what Iqbal talks about all the time. Fudi. You got to understand that you are something. You are a different human being. You are something entirely. You are the cream of the creation. Is constantly reminding that you are not just any other person. You understand your khudi. You don't lose yourself. The world is not for, you are not for the world. The whole world is for you. Like it's open. You don't think that they are gods. They are there for you. And this creates mental freedom, and like Islam is that kind of revolution. That when Iqbal, in one of his verses, he says, "Ek sajda jise tu garan samajhta hai," this one prostration that you think is very difficult for you, it frees you from 1,000 different prostrations to these demigods. This one prostration before your creator frees you from 1,000 different prostrations before these demigods. So if you want to understand that there is only one God, this thought frees you from all these demigods. And that's the beauty of Iqbal's thought, that he teaches us Quran in such a wonderful way that it's like I wish you could. I wish I could bring the nuances of the beauty of his Urdu verses, and it's wonderful. एक सजदा जिसे तू गरां समझता है, हजार सजदों से देता है आदमी को निजात. Thousands of prostrations, you are free from all of them.
Right. Well, see, that'll be our next project.
Yeah. Thank you. Inshallah. Inshallah.
Inshallah. So,
Inshallah.
well, this has been a very fruitful and intellectually stimulating discourse, and I'm glad
Yeah,
we've
I
been
really
able.
enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So,
Look-
yeah, make sure that anyone, if you want to use this for your class or anyone else to use it for their class or whatnot, it's always available. Islam and Postmodernism by Amjad Hussain, great scholar from Peshawar, Pakistan, and a member of the Institute for Critical Social Theory, which is our institute that we put together just recently. So, good discussion today.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate your efforts and whatever you're doing. May Allah bless you for whatever you're doing, because I know your niyyah, that you are doing it selflessly and you are truly devoted to the cause. And may Allah reward you for it, because we cannot do that, and I don't think you want anything from this world. I know your niyyah is quite different, and the kind of advocacy that you are engaged in. May Allah reward you for that.
Shukriya.
We will always keep you in our prayers.
Oh, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.